Hi, this is Pamela Worth with the Encourage Your Wellness podcast. And today I have Chris Brault. And Chris, it is awesome to have you. Was fortunate enough to attend one of your classes and learned a lot. And, tell us a little bit about you, what breathwork is. I've been frequently told by different yoga practitioners and things, over the years, focus on your breath. But what does this all really mean, and how does it all kind of come together? So thank you for helping us here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on board. I always love being part of these. But yeah, so a little bit about my background is, first off, I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts my whole life, and grew up a very lovely childhood, like any kind of like normal struggles that could come up for people, which is just like social engagements with people, focusing in school, very traditional family, like too. It was very great. And when I was, it was right around in high school time. That's where some of the challenges started coming along with me, that started to dive into a bit of the darker days for me. Not understanding of values, and, just constantly seeking acceptance from others. And, it can lead down, like a negative pathway in some of those ways, but it's just kids being kids at that time frame. Right. So coming out of high school, I wasn't really sure at all who I was as a person, what I wanted to do, nothing at all. So I really was just going the traditional route that, was passed down in my family, is to just, hey, go to school, get a job, get benefits, and, just follow that pathway. And I continued to do that for a period of time. I got my degree in business. And again, I just had no idea what I wanted to do. And as I was getting older, it started growing on me that I'm like, I have no idea. So I felt like I was going on a pathway to really nowhere at that time frame, but I was very hardworking. I kept a positive attitude. That's where like got me far with a lot of like, I always had a good means of making a living for myself, but just had no real purpose behind it. And then I always had this I've always wanted to seek more adventure in my life. And I remember traveling out a couple times, to the West Coast. I lived in California for a little bit. I visited out here in Tempe a few years back, and I was like, man, I love the Red Rocks, the mountains, the energy around it. It was beautiful. And I moved out here in 2020. I was working currently in IT for a few years. But then I just realized that I just did not like this at all. This was just more so a means for me to just make a living and make money. And, I thought that was going to be enough, but it wasn't. And then I got into the wellness industry, where I worked at a shop called Restore Hyper Wellness, everything from biohacking, cryotherapy, red light therapy, all of the fun tools that they have nowadays. That was part of it. And I still love that. But my real passion came when I came across, everything changed for me when I came across breathwork. And that, I've noticed now these past couple of years, has just been growing so much popularity. And is because I know that people have been realizing how much of a powerful tool it is. So what I did was I went on my own type of healing journey, I would like to say, a few years back, which ended up going to a ceremony in California. There was an individual there named Watali, who was guiding what we call transformational breathwork session. He calls it the Watali breathwork. And it really was the most bizarre thing that I ever did, but it was amazing. It was just being in a room with 50 people lying down, setting our intention behind why we were here, what we wanted to get out of this, what we were willing to let go. And it was just a 1 hour of deep, intensified breathing. And then all I really knew and what to expect at that time was just these emotions started pouring out of me. I started getting deeper insights as to who I was, the things that were bothering me. Yeah, it was really just amazing. And I noticed all the different reactions around in the room was all over the place too. And that was the moment where I was just in wow. And then I just had to dive deeper into it.
All right. So when you say dive deeper into it, what does that mean? And how is this breathing any different than like typical breathing you would do in a meditation or in a yoga class or whatever people might be kind of thinking here?
Sure. So, just in general breath work, there's all different types of breath work out there. It just depends on what it is that people are trying to establish here. And really, all in all, the breath is just a tool, right? It's just a tool that is going to help regulate our nervous system in general here. So when I meant dive deeper, I just felt like, how did something as simple as breathing get us to where we are now? How did I come into this room feeling deep into the lows and everybody else feeling that way too? And then coming out the other side 1 hour later, just feeling completely joyous and uplifted and just clear. Like, how did something like that happen? How does it work? And then that's where I wanted to dive into the transformational side. Now, if you're looking into, like in the yogi world, like, there's other practices. There's, different nervous system regulations that they can use by different techniques, variations of inhales and exhales. There's also different breathing patterns for those who are high performance in the physical fitness realm or high performers. How can they keep going? And then here is the transformational side where what this entails is it's a powerful tool set that is really helpful for deep exploration, really diving into the psyche of our body and somatically releasing these emotions that get stuck inside of our bodies and really can, put an effect on our judgment in the world.
So, do you find that most people come to you knowing what transformational breathing is? Or do you find that a lot of people come to you and they're like, I don't know what this is. I don't even know that I have an intention. What kind of intention should I have? Or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So most of the people that I have worked with, they've never done this before. Now, there's very few people that have heard about it. There's very few people that have had their own type of healing modalities involved. But when they do come to my sessions, for the most part, people have not done this before. And it's just setting the proper expectations as to why is it that we're here? How is this going to work? What to expect? And what am I getting out of this, really? Yeah.
Do you find that most people set an intention of wanting to get rid of something or to gain something? Or do you not know?
It's a combination of both, really. It's very particular to the individual. But this is what I go over before every session too, is that we all hold a certain level of capacity in our lives, right? And I feel that this is just one of those tools that in order for us to gain something, we have to let go of something as well. There has to be an exchange of this energy involved. There has to be an exchange of, whatever this ideology is that we may be holding on to about ourselves. Now, whether that's something from the past, something going on currently, there's something that has to be let go of and accepted in order for us to gain new prosperity.
And then who do you typically see in sessions like this? Who is it for? Is there a certain age group, a certain type of person?
So I've had a variety of all age groups, but I've seen a more popular route, more so around between 40 and 50 years old. Yeah. Yes, I've had everybody that is, a parent of a family. They run a business. There's, entrepreneurs, innovators. Anybody that is looking to dive deeper within themselves.
And then how often do you recommend doing something like this?
Yeah, so it depends on what the individual is trying to get to. So if this is something that somebody is looking to experience and just get back into a center balance, I would say, I've had people come once a week. I've done one-on-one coaching with people that do once a week. I've had people come to events maybe once a month. I've had people that have had proper integration afterwards, and they come every few months. It really depends on what the individual is trying to get to and how deep are they trying to go.
And I believe your training's a little bit different than some people's, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. As far as the training that I received or what I present into the class?
Both, actually.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, I'll go ahead and explain where I got the training from, how, I got the knowledge behind with it. So I went through a school that was based out of Bali called Breath Masters. So this was a virtual training that I did here while I was living in Arizona a few years back. And this was particularly about transformational breathing. This was a whole program that based on the coaches being on live calls with you, teaching and guiding everything that you needed to know as far as like just the basic mechanics of what breathing is, how it physiologically affects the body, and how the nervous system regulates itself, and what are the different states of it, like what is the sympathetic side of it, what's the parasympathetic side of it, and how do we use these different techniques to manipulate it, how to curate a proper set and setting for these individuals to feel safe and to, be fully expressive into doing this work, and just how to professionally and safely holding these spaces.
So you might want to touch on too the difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're looking at a scale with your nervous system, right, there are two sides of it. There's a sympathetic nervous system side of it, which is the fight or flight. That's where, your heart is beating out of your chest. Things are just go, 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 very fast pace. And that is where, like the high stressors can come through. And then if you look at the complete opposite side of that is the parasympathetic side of it. That's the rest, digest, relax side of the nervous system, right? So, us human beings, we can't just sit here and if we feel nervous or if we have a fast heartbeat, we can't just sit here and be like, hey, slow down, right? Just stop. I don't like this. But we can use the breath as a tool to manipulate that, right? So there are variations where if I am in a fast pace, if I'm feeling high rates of energy, if I'm feeling anxious, if my head's racing or my heart is racing, I know how to, you can slow that down by the use of your breath. And that's another way that I like to use the breath. It's more than just breath that we're talking about here. It's really like, I like to reference this like you're working on a hands-on project or you're building a house or whatever you're doing, right? And you're not just going to, put a screw into a piece of wood or build everything up just by hand. You have to have the proper tools, right? That's going to make life a lot more easier, a lot more effective and time constraint. And that's what the breath is for diving into our psyche and bringing us back to balance, is that it's a tool to get us there for transformation, for healing, whatever the purpose and intention may be.
And you combine sound with it too, correct?
Yes, I do. Yep.
So what kind of sound do you find works with the nervous system better or worse? Or
Yeah, that's a great question. So I like to use, it's a combination of music that, some of it is something that I generally do like, but anything that is vibrational and it sets the tone and an energy and the rhythm with the breathing throughout the journey. So, when it comes to warming up in the journey as well, and, that's just more of a warm up round, really. So just anything that is just priming the body, getting people into the setting of it, the zone of it. And, and then as it's escalating, I like to guide it as far as, sometimes I slow it down. Sometimes the music can get emotional, so it can be things that are, can feel more sad. In case like people do have hidden traumas and blocked up emotions that maybe they are holding grief and sadness behind it. And when you're breathing and you get into the state, and I'll get into what I mean by that in a moment, but it's just setting the energy in the room. It's just properly moving it, right? And music is a very powerful tool to make that a smooth transition.
And when you say when you're in the state, what does that mean?
So, how this breathing physiologically, mentally, and emotionally works, how this is when you are in a transformational session here. What is happening is that, well, actually, let me back it up a moment. Just basic mechanics of breathing here in general, just inhale and exhale. What that is doing is when somebody is breathing fast and short, like what is happening is that our bodies have about anywhere from 70 to 80,000 miles of blood vessels in the body, which is such an astronomical number. And what is happening is how you breathe affects those. So fast and shorter breathing is going to constrict those in our body. And that can cause us to have, like nervous breakdowns for people. I mean, think about, when people are stressed out or they're angry or they're emotional, they're fast paced and they just have no intention or what's going on with their breathing. And they're naturally, subconsciously just breathing heavy into their chest, then their body's just constricting. But what this is doing in the setting of transformational breathing is you're breathing for a long period of time, quick and deep. So you're constricting the blood vessels throughout the body, which then is going to restrict the blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, the central governor of the brain. And the idea behind that is that we want to quiet down the monkey mind, the ego mind in our heads. So that way we can actually get into a state, what's called theta brainwave state. And theta brainwave is like when you essentially get into a state of flow. So your mind becomes more like a sponge. It's more open to auto-suggestions and words and beliefs. Just like when you look at a child, like a child all through their younger days is just in theta. They're just absorbing so much, right? So that's what this setting is about, is to get this out of the way, because our minds, as much as it can be a very valuable tool, if used properly, it can be, it can be very disruptive in our lives. It can get in the way. So using this as a tool is getting that out of the way.
No, I think that's interesting. And then is there, and you find it generally takes a good 10 or 15 minutes to get out of your head, so to speak, right? And just be.
Yes. Yeah. So 15 to 20 minutes of that deep breathing. And of course, if you're doing the deep breathing, that's roughly what it takes. So that first 15 minutes is probably going to be the most challenging, because the main function that our minds like to do is it seeks safety. It's designed to protect you, right? So when there's something that's unfamiliar or uncomfortable or unknown, it's going to challenge you. It's going to work its tricks. It's going to, tell you what the heck is going on. Don't do this. Stop. But then, the key is just to trust yourself. Know that you're in a safe space. Know that this work is safe. Your body can take it. And then once you get past that and you trust your breath, it will take you where you need to go to. And then you start to get in a flow.
So how do you find most people feel when it's over? Do they feel tired? Do they feel relieved? Do they feel happy? Is it a mix?
Yeah, for the most part, I see a lot of people, they feel very clear. They feel a lot of joy. But it does differ to the individual, because it dives into whatever the body is feeling itself. So if somebody has just gone through an exhausting day, I worked a 10-hour day, I worked out, I'm exhausted, but like my mind keeps going, and I go do this breathing, and then you do the work, then afterwards you may just fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
And,
it's, you know,
and is that okay? Do you find that people perhaps should do this in certain circumstances versus others, or is it just you're just doing what the body needs for you?
yeah, I think it's fantastic. One of the things that I mentioned is that there's no real bad outcome of what comes out. It's to not set any expectations as what's going to come out of it, right? You're getting exactly what you need. And I feel that if you set an expectation on something and you don't necessarily get that direct outcome that you wanted, which comes from here, the mind, then that can cause disappointment and disruption, right? You're not actually allowing to what the body needs. If the body is just exhausted and needs rest, that's what you're going to get, right?
So mentally, obviously, it's very clear what this can do for you. Do you find this helps with physical ailments or anything like that as well?
Yeah, and I'll speak of that personally for me because it's funny coming from a breathwork coach because I grew up with asthma my whole life.
Mm.
Right. So I was the kid that had to use the nebulizer like every day. Just because if I was like running or playing sports, I'd be wheezing. And but that's all I had growing up with doctors was just use a nebulizer, take these pill steroids, have an emergency healer if you need it. This is just the way it's going to be. But I found that there's a lot more than just the breathing on what it does to the mental side. But yeah, physiologically it helps as well too. And it's building up the CO2, you're building up a CO2 tolerance within your body, but somatically as well is throughout this process, our bodies, and I share this before every session as well to get an understanding of how the body is connected to this, is that your body stores all of these memories throughout your whole entire life. So it stores, the memories of, like our pains, our traumas, all these, blocked up emotions that people could be pent up from these moments in our life that could have been very disruptive. It doesn't matter how far back it goes. Our body is a record keeper of all of that, and they can be stored in different parts of the body. And that puts an effect on our nervous system. The nervous system is our whole entire network there. And one of the things as well too is this is a little scientific here as well, but there's the vagus nerve, the longest nerve within the body that's connected to our nervous system. That's like the nervous system central highway right there. And if you take an individual that has a lot of pent up, blocked up emotions and trauma in their life, whatever may be built up in them, that can cause a lot of disruption to the network right there. And the vagus nerve is like this response is held responsibly to, it can shut on and off any organ in the body. So, for example, we've probably, you probably know people who may be doing all the right things, like, they get enough rest, they work out, they eat organic, but they get sick all the time, right? So there's a lot of these somatically in our body that can cause a lot of illnesses. So when you do this work, you are essentially acknowledging and expressing and clearing that out of the body. And the body then becomes back to balance. It becomes back into harmony. It functions the way it needs to function, right? And I remember that for myself as well. I remember I just had, my nervous system was jacked up my entire life. I was such a skittish kid, and my breathing was just all in my upper chest, fast paced. I was nervous. I was anxious. I was sweating all the time. But then when I realized that that was causing a lot of disruption to my asthma and my breathing and other functions of the body as well that I was struggling with, I realized that when I released a lot of this backed up trauma in my life, then it felt like I had a new pair of lungs all of a sudden. I was like, I can breathe amazing right now.
So you don't use the inhaler anymore?
Oh, no more. No. Thank goodness for this work.
So, do you like to combine breath work with any other modality, or do you find it, is successful in certain people that also do certain things, or, just any, I'm just wondering about that too.
Yeah. I mean, For me personally, I keep it unique to the healing transformative part of it. For me personally, that's what I like to use, right? Because you can find a breath coach if you're like an Olympic runner or sports competitor and you want to learn how to properly use your breathing as a tool to get your higher performance up and not get gassed out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you have your breathing that's that's going to give you more energy, that's going to relax you. And then of course there's this unique modality of it, which is the healing side of it, the transformation side of it. So for me, that's just its own unique modality towards it.
Super. Is there anything else that you want to make sure we touch on that we've not touched on yet?
I don't believe so. I believe that explains it all. But I would say that anybody who may be curious as far as like who would breathwork be for, I would just say that it's for anyone that's seeking a powerful tool to enhance their overall well-being and cultivate a deeper connection with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So whether people are navigating through stress, they want to explore personal growth, and or just learn to manage their emotions, or simply looking to optimize their mental and physical health, breath work is a very powerful way to do that, and it is available to us.
Super. Now, do you only see people in person? Do you also do remote?
I do both.
Okay.
Yep. So I do the in-person sessions. I do them quite often via Zoom. So I try to make it as available as possible.
And how do people find out more about you?
So you can find me through social media, which is Creators Breath. And there's also my website as well, which is creatorsbreath.com. That is my business. So I just put everything up on there as far as events or anyone that wants to get in contact with me. Yeah, okay. Whether it's a public event or if they want to work one-on-one, that's all available.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chris. I really appreciate having you on today.
Yeah, absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you, Pam.